Yes.
Welcome everyone to Tim's Vinyl Confessions. Once again, I am joined by my good friend Mike Ladano from the LeBrain train. And as Mike has already demonstrated with that really cool shirt, we're going to talk about some Helix today.
You got it,
Uh,
buddy.
One of Canada's, I call them one of the most dependable hard rock bands come out of Canada. They're just a good time rock and roll band for what ails you. And I think we've both seen them quite a few times in concert. I've met them a couple of times. I've
Yeah,
interviewed Brian Vollmer,
yeah.
super nice guy, and very prolific band. I think a lot of people, especially if you're watching in the States, might have thought, well, yeah, didn't they put out like 3 albums and that was it? No, 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 no. Much more than that. And if you're ready, if you're prepared, Mike and I are going to take you through all things Helix. So I guess I have to ask, Mike, what was your first exposure to the music of Helix?
I'm really glad you asked, Tim, because I come from Kitchener, Ontario, which viewers may recognize that is considered the hometown of Helix. Brian Vollmer was actually born in Listowel, Ontario, which is about 45 minutes from here. And he's based out of London, which is an hour from here. But the band formed and stayed in Kitchener for many years. And growing up, grade 7, grade 8, there was a kid in school named Ian Johnson. And Ian Johnson was kind of the kind of kid that used to brag a lot. Like he used to tell me that he wrote Star Wars and gave the ideas to George Lucas, that kind of thing. So his word could not be taken for gospel truth. So when he told me that Brian Vollmer lived 3 doors down from him, I didn't believe him. Why should I? He also told me that Brian Vollmer showed him a Christmas card that he got from Wasp. And I remember specifically the first line of the Christmas card was slashing through the toes. And I was just like, bullshit, forget it.
Yeah.
Years later, the internet comes along. I email Brian Vollmer and I ask him, is there any truth to this? Did you live on this street in Kitchener, Ontario? Yeah, I lived there with my first wife from this year to this year. And I was like, oh my God, all these years he was telling the truth. And then Vollmer put out his excellent book, Give Me an R. There's a picture of the Christmas card from Wasp with the line
That's
flashing
okay.
through the
That's why
toes.
that sounds familiar. Okay.
Right.
Yeah.
So all these years, there he was, literally 2 streets over from me. And there would always be like rumors like, oh, I saw Brent Durner at Zares getting Coke, stuff like that.
Yeah.
But they were legendary. Like they were the local band that had made the big time. I'm talking 84, Walking the
Yeah.
Razor's Edge. They were
Yeah.
in the CanCon world, they were massive in 1984. They were as big as Iron Maiden or Judas Priest as far as our impressions in Canada went
Oh,
by
very
airplane.
much so. So that's when I became aware of them, but not for the same reason out here, out east. Saw a little video called Rock You on video hits. We didn't have much music yet, but on video hits. And, of course, it's their signature song, but that got me hooked. And I've just followed along ever since. And they're just a likable rock and roll band, and there's a lot of history there. And yeah, they got a lot of albums. So let's get talking about our Helix discographies, and we're going to go through all the formats that we have. To my knowledge, as of recording this, I don't believe there are any Helix 8 tracks, but it would not surprise me, Mike, to find out that there are Canadian Columbia has 8 tracks of at least Walking the Razor's Edge, because that was such a big album in Canada.
Right, and that's Capital.
That yeah.
So they
So
would have been producing 8
um,
tracks, right?
they were still, yeah, in '84, Columbia House were still making 8 tracks for uh, the record club, or at least for Columbia House. So it's possible. I mean, up until a few weeks ago, I didn't know for sure that the Coney Hatch album existed, and now I know it does. So, let's just add more things to my want list. But anyway,
Yeah,
way back in '79, Helix did something like, okay, so they formed, I think, in '74, and
74.
they were just hitting the roads coast to coast. Um, and they did something that not every band did. They actually got the funds together and did an independent album, which I think we both have. Breaking Loose.
Yours seems
My
to be
copy
signed on the
is
front.
my copy is signed by the then current band from when I met them in 2009. They put this out on their own label, H&S Records,
H&S.
which is to my knowledge, it stands for Helix and William
Yes.
Sipe, their manager, and yeah, my record looks exactly like yours. There'd only be the one pressing. It's one that eluded me on CD for many years until the last time that it was reissued, which was this uh, Prague AOR Records version. Yeah, we probably got ours at the same time, directly from Planet Helix. This has a couple of yes, the early years.
Yep.
That came out in '91. But this has a couple of bonus tracks on
Yep.
it. And, you know, for an indie debut in 1979, it's not a bad sounding album. And, you know, the songs are pretty good. It's not really heavy. It's
It's
not
not
really,
really heavy,
it's kind
but
of barroom rock and roll, but it's good stuff.
there's some prog on here as well.
Oh, Billy Oxygen. Like
I
that's
tell
the,
you, man, um, I know a lot of very knowledgeable, very schooled rock fans, and they hold Billy Oxygen in very high esteem. That's a Brent Durner song that he sings himself, and it's a boogie. It's a
oh,
pure boogie.
yeah.
And the lyrics are
Um,
clever. They're cute and clever.
well, I don't know if people realize that the whole ES 335, that's a guitar.
That's right.
That's a Gibson guitar. If you picture Alex Lifeson in the '70s with that white guitar, that's a ES 335. I mean, I may get some of the numbers wrong, but um, unfortunately, I've seen Helix 3 times in concert. The closest I've seen for them doing Billy Oxygen is, and I saw them in 2016 as we were walking in. They sound checked with it, um, but they didn't actually do it in the set.
I know that
So,
they were playing it when Brian Durner returned to the band in the mid 2000s.
yeah,
I remember asking Brian Durner about this. I was like, Brian, I hear that you're singing Billy Oxygen live. And he said, yeah, what of it? As if I was confronting him, as if I was being, I'm like, no, you don't understand. That is our song, you know?
yeah,
And there's some great stuff on this album as well. Wish I Could Be There is another kind of science fiction-y song.
yeah.
I think Brent Durner ends up singing about 3 tunes through the course
Crazy
of the first
Women.
2
That's one that
albums.
because I remember when I first got the early years, not a lot in it really for credits. I didn't have the records at that point, and I'm thinking, doesn't sound like Brian on this one.
Right.
But yeah. So very quickly, they followed it up with another independent album,
Yeah.
1981, and for the second time, he titled an album after a song that would appear on the next album.
Yeah.
Because the first song on here, great tune, Breaking Loose.
Yeah.
And of course, this is White Lace and Black Leather.
2
Again,
new
on
band
their own
members
label.
this time.
Yep. 1981. Yep. And the record looks a little different this time around. Yeah, I like the label on this one. I think it's
mine's
pretty
the
cool.
same. But
Yeah.
mine has some autographs on it here. I saw Fritz, Paul Hackman, the late Paul Hackman signed this.
Oh, that's
Brian
cool.
Durner signed it, Brent Durner, and I'm assuming the last gentleman must be Daryl Gray then. So that would be the classic EMI years lineup.
Yeah. Yeah, it's a different rhythm section on the
Right.
first couple Helix albums.
Brian Durner is a very, very special drummer. He's been in Saga.
Yeah.
He's played on a number of albums, and he left after the first record, and he was replaced by Leo Nybeduk.
Yeah.
And the original bass player, Keith Bert Zerbrig, was replaced by Mike Uzlak. And
Yeah.
there's a story behind him too.
Yeah, he went missing.
Missing for a lot of years. I know a guy who, well, I know a guy who's played in bands with him, but I don't think the rhythm section lived up to that on the first album. That's a personal critique, but I'm a big Brian Durner fan. Having said that, I think both albums are really high quality. I honestly feel they're,
This is the CD version, and yeah, there are some great songs on here. Like in a couple of years, I don't know, there's some very pro sounding songs on here that wouldn't have sounded out of place on one of their major label albums. You know, Breaking Loose is great. Well, here's another. Sorry, let me rewind that. The second track on here is called It's Too Late. Now, Helix are one of 2 bands that I know of that have 2 songs with the same title that are completely different.
the other one is not one that they wrote though. It's on
Right.
the Iron Eagle.
The Iron Eagle soundtrack. Yeah, we'll talk about.
Yeah, we're not there yet.
Making an appearance, but yeah, 2 completely different songs with the same title. The only other band I can think of is Dawkins because they have 2 different songs called Prisoner.
Bruce Dickinson has 2 songs called Wicker Man, if you want to include Iron Maiden.
Really?
Yeah.
I did not know that.
Yeah.
Oh, okay, cool. So this is another prog AOR version with a couple of bonus tracks. This album actually got them noticed in the UK
Yeah.
in Kerrang magazine, which is pretty cool. They've always had a pretty accepting audience there. So inevitably, all that hard work, it paid off, and they signed with Capitol Records. And this is kind of when they entered the big wide world out there with one of my favorites, and actually the first Helix album I ever bought, which was I bought the cassette in 1987, No Rest for the Wicked.
I have highly recommended this to people who've never heard Helix before.
Yeah, it's a good place to start. It was a long time before I actually found this on record, and even longer before I found it on CD. And there's so much detail you don't see on just the little cassette version of this. This is the record. It's the Capitol rainbow ring label on it.
I'm sure it's the same though.
This is not the first cassette I had of this. I actually had the one that was like the reissue, the silver with the blue writing on it.
Okay.
But this is the original Canadian Capitol version. And
that looks familiar.
Eventually, I did find it. There was a Capitol in Canada did a 50th anniversary edition of it, and I found this in 2002, and it was cool because of the three, Helix's first three Capitol albums eluded me on CD for many, many years. Yeah, you get the same version that I got.
Did you get is yours signed as well?
No, I actually found mine. I found mine in a store, which was pretty surprising.
I had no idea that they were even widely distributed in stores. But if you order something from the Helix website, in my experience, it always comes signed.
Oh yeah.
How cool is that?
Yeah, Brian always signs everything. Yeah. If you want to get into Helix, go to planethelix.com. I was on there a few days ago. Right now, as of this, I think the rock paper merch, I think it's under construction or it's tentative right now, but most of the albums they keep available. And I remember when I saw them in 2009, they had merch. They had all kinds of CDs, and there were different versions of some of the CDs. So my guess is that when Brian's out and about on the road, when he sees something, when he sees one, he buys it. That's my guess, because some of them were opened.
That could be,
which is pretty cool. But taking care of the fans, he's really, really good at that. So next up, of course,
you know what, Tim? We forgot something important. This is the debut of the much loved Fritz Heinz, Starchild drummer.
Yes.
And if you can find a copy of Starchild on vinyl, I will be willing to pay you $100 for a copy of the album.
You heard it here, folks.
There you go.
So, of course, the big album, the one album that if you had one Helix album, it's this one.
Yeah, had to be.
Walking the Razor's Edge. My copy's signed. This is a Canadian copy on Capitol. I mean, yeah, this was their moment. This was their this was a platinum album in Canada, and it was their only album to chart in the top 100 in the States, which is, I have to think that if they had more high-powered management, they would have done better in the States, because they just were perfect for the times. They got a lot of great opening gigs. The record itself is the typical Capitol Rainbow CD, but I've got something else here to show you, which is kind of cool. I keep it in here because it's not square. This is a picture disc single to Gimme Gimme Good Lovin'.
Nice.
From the UK. And it's got When the Hammer Falls is the B-side. And I've never played it. I don't think there's any need to play it. There's nothing different on here. It's just cool.
Yeah.
Now, you held up the CD, and mine is different. Mine is this Capitol Connoisseur series. And I got it off the website.
This here is the Rock Candy. I bought this directly from Brian, and it has 3 bonus tracks, which come into play on my next rarity that I'll show you.
I think I can guess what it is. Yeah, mine's signed too. That's why I say I think there's different versions on hand at any given time. But I like the way that they did the CD of this. Rock Candy always do a great version or a great job with their reissues. But
I do know where this came from. Apparently, the story goes, Brian wasn't really in the loop on this release. And he made a deal to get a whole bunch of CDs for him to sell on his own. And I bought this directly from Brian.
That's cool. And one of the most approachable guys I've ever met, and it's, that's been out and about there in the music business, super nice guy.
When he sold his autobiography, I understand that he in London delivered it door to door.
That doesn't surprise me.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But then
So
my real rarity.
I think you've got some. Yeah, I don't have this live at the Marquee. Yeah.
Right. This is one of those things that I didn't know about until, Brian started doing stuff online.
Yeah.
And this came from, well, I guess Phil Dunn's Vinyl Museum.
Yeah.
Buddy of mine bought it for me. And this is a 6-track. This is awesome, by the way. A burning hot 6-track live EP, mine signed by Fritz. The 6 tracks are Young and Reckless, Rock You, Make Me Do Anything You Want, Gimme Gimme Good Lovin', Animal House, and Heavy Metal Love. So basically all the hits and a couple deep cuts.
Yeah.
It is hot, and only 3 of these tracks have ever been released on CD, which was that Rock Candy.
Those bonus tracks.
Edge.
Yeah. Cool.
Yeah,
I think at times over the years, I think it's been available on the site on CD, but I've never been on there when it has. I could be wrong about that, but it seems to me that's been available before.
Sure.
So next up is 1985 follow-up, another platinum album in Canada, Long Way to Heaven. Mine's still in the it's in the shrink wrap, but it's open on the end.
Okay.
Record looks the same as Capitol Records would look at that time. And I've actually got a U.S. cassette of Long Way to Heaven.
U.S. cassette?
Yeah.
Yeah.
It looks similar. You can see that it's a little bit different here, and you can really tell here.
Oh, yeah, mine was black.
Yeah. Other than that, it looks pretty much the same. And I think I've got the same CD as you. I got this from Planet Helix.
Yeah.
And this filled in, like, my CD collection was lacking these 3 Helix albums, and so I was really glad to.
Well, these were never printed on CD in the dawn of the CD era, but of course, Helix's first CD is one that we will be showing off.
And that's a tough one when that happens, because as Brian talks about in his book, they weren't set up for it. It's not just a matter of running a few more off. This has never been released on CD.
Right.
They just missed the CD age. Although I think that the earliest version, I could be wrong about this, I think you could get Walking the Razor's Edge from Japan at one point. And that doesn't surprise me.
Right.
So next up, man, one of my favorites, one of my favorite Helix albums, probably one of my 2 favorite Helix albums. They've never really done a bad album. That's one thing, but from listening to them, getting ready for this show, no matter how many different lineup changes Brian Vollmer has been through with that band, they've always put a really consistent album. But this one is one of my all-time favorites, and I've got my vinyl signed here, Wild in the Streets, 1987. I love this album. I know it inside out. This is the first one I've got that actually has an inner sleeve. So it's got a photo of the band.
Oh, that's cool.
The lyrics. Now, this album and No Rest for the Wicked went gold in Canada. So they had 2 platinum and 2 gold albums. I have to think Back for Another Taste must be close, or must have gotten close to it, but it definitely didn't sell what they should have. And yeah, this is one of the rare CDs that I showed off on our Rare CD episode a few weeks ago. This is an original U.S. Capitol CD of Wild in the Streets, which was their very first domestic, just because by the time that came around, it was standard for record labels to put out the CDs. But some of these bands, they just missed, and if they weren't big from the get-go, sometimes it was years before, this stuff was released on CD.
I got my original Wild in the Streets CD at Cash Converters, which was in the same plaza as my record store. A buddy of mine walked in and said, "Hey, do you want Wild in the Streets? They got it for $12 at Cash Converters." And I was like, "Yes, sir."
Don't mind if I do.
But I got
this is a US cassette, so it looks different on the side. And it's
now, do you have a Canadian cassette?
I did.
Those were special.
And there were 2 different ones. I used to have one that was just a plain black regular cassette, but I also know that there was the glow in the dark, the white glow in the dark one,
which I gave away. And
I've got one more thing from that era. I don't have a lot of picture sleeves, but I got this one. They're awesome cover of a song I didn't even know was a cover for many years. It's a Nazareth song only came out 5 years before that, Dream On. Very, very faithful to the Nazareth version. What You Bring to the Party is the B-side. And
I forgot to show this one off earlier now that I've got my 7 inches out.
oh, that's cool.
That's a beauty.
That's
too.
cool.
Yeah.
I've never seen that.
Hard to find Helix picture sleeves.
Yeah. No, this is, well, I've got two. So this is the only one from back in the day that I have.
I think I know the second one that you're going to talk about.
Yeah, you probably do. The next thing to come out, in late 80s, Capitol in Canada put out all of this series over 60 minutes with, and they made a big deal about, you could put over 60 minutes worth of music on a CD, which I never understood. They never filled up the whole CD.
No.
They did 3 of them with April Wine. I mean, they did any act that was on Capitol in Canada.
I had Gordon Lightfoot and Red Rider.
Yeah. So I've seen Prism and Streetheart and Luba and
Luba, yeah, that's a common one. Yeah.
Who I know I'm missing all Strange Advance. Like basically any act that was on Capitol in Canada, you were going to get one of these. And in some cases, it was the first time some of these songs were on CD.
Yeah.
But the first time I got it was actually on cassette. Yeah. And this is just a great compilation.
I didn't even know it existed on cassette. I thought these were CD exclusive.
No, this is where I walked into Sam's in early 1990 and picked this up. And wow. Yeah, I listened to this a lot. It doesn't really make sense for it to come out in cassette, but I've seen a lot of them, so it must have paid off. It's got 21 songs on it. They probably could have squeezed on 2 more. It's got 7 out of the 10 songs from No Rest for the Wicked, as 6 out of 10 from Walk of the Razor's Edge, 4 out of 10 from Long Way to Heaven. It has
3 unreleased songs.
3 songs on here that were new at the time. Give It to You, Jaws of the Tiger, and Everybody Pays the Price. Nice, slow, heavy one. And a little bit of information. Grinder. Yeah, a little bit of information about the band too. This is actually a Columbia House CD. So yeah, this was the definitive Helix compilation for many, many years. There's been a lot more since, but this was very cool. And I used to wonder why there was nothing from Wild in the Streets on here. Then I realized, okay, Wild in the Streets was already on CD. When I didn't buy CDs, that didn't mean anything to me.
Right.
So
I was just glad to have it. And I actually played this yesterday and very much enjoyed it. Very much.
Like it's almost like Journey's greatest hits in that I'm used to hearing those songs in the order that they are on there.
They sound great in this order, incidentally.
They do. It was well sequenced. Next thing I got, very fond memories. Just the beginning of summer 1990. I think it was like my last day of class. Went up to A&A's. I had a coupon. Remember when you used to get pop liners and you get $3 off or regularly? I got my $3 off. Back for Another Taste. Probably my favorite Helix album. This one and Wild in the Streets are just so good. I listen to this album so much. It only came out on Capitol in Canada. Which is a shame. It's a fantastic album. I mean,
it is. The story here is that Brian Vollmer, I believe, went to New Jersey to write with Mark Ribler and a few other people. And in his words, it really cranked his songwriting abilities up several notches.
3 singles and videos from this album. One became their highest charting song, Good to the Last Drop. Fantastic ballad. I prefer the album version to the glossed up keyboardy version, but it's a great song no matter how you look at it. They're down to a 4-piece at this point. The Doctor had left, and I actually do have this on vinyl. This is a UK copy.
I was going to say the Canadian vinyl's different.
Yeah, and this, for some reason, they put Wild in the Streets on the end of it. I don't know why. This is on, I think it's GWR Records. But it's the only copy that I know it came out in Canada on Capitol. I've never seen one. But it's on GWR Records. And
the cover in Canada is completely different. It was like to commemorate the last run of EMI Capitol Records in Canada. And the actual picture on the sleeve was about that big. And the rest of it was like a silver framing.
That's cool. That would stand. So this is what the actual record looked like.
Wow.
And just quickly, because you already showed it off, the release date was 91. This was Helix, the early years. It's just their first 2 albums popped onto one CD. I got this when I first joined Columbia House in 93, which it wasn't available much longer after that. So this is one of the first, this is the first time I got to hear the first 2 albums.
Now, also in 91, as you mentioned, the single. So I got this baby here. I don't know if you recognize this colored case that I put it in. You might
I
recognize
think
that.
I do. I think, did that come from You Wanted the Best? You
It
got the
did.
best?
And then my ultimate rarity, which I have talked about this with members of Helix. This is the Good to the Last Drop cassette single. It has that remix, but it also has a track called SEX Rated.
Yeah.
Now, we'll talk about an album that has this song on
Say
it
some of
later.
you might recognize that title,
Right.
but this
It's
is a
also the title
different
of a
mix.
DVD that'll show off. But this is a completely different recording from the one that was later released on CD. It's only on cassette. I have looked and looked. I emailed Brian Vollmer and I said, hey, Brian, is there any chance of this SEX Rated ever being reissued on a CD? And he wrote back simply, Mike, I don't know what you're talking about. And I asked,
did you send him a picture of it? Like,
sorry, what's that?
did you send him a picture? Like,
I don't believe I did. I don't believe I did.
That might have been like, no, it's real. Here it is. Yeah.
If you want to hear a little bit of this, there's a little bit on YouTube. I uploaded earlier this year my copy of a Helix documentary from Much Music called Waltzing with Helix. And it's about their Eastern European tour. And the very beginning, I put in a little memorial for one of their roadies who passed away last year, a guy by the name of Brian Knight. I grew up with Brian Knight.
Okay.
And he passed away last year. So I put a little intro there, just rest in peace, Brian Knight. And I used a little bit of the original SEX Rated at that. So you can hear it for yourself and you can hear how vastly different it is from the final version. This is my preferred version. Yeah. Brian, please release this on CD.
Yeah. It's real.
It's real. It exists.
That was when you talked. I think I remember that special on Much Music, and you're really good at uploading a lot of these things. Some of which I had on VHS, some of which I didn't, but I remember seeing. I think they were opening for Ian Gillan on that tour.
Ian Gillan for some dates and Sacred Reich on other dates.
Okay.
And Paul Hackman from Helix ended up interviewing Ian Gillan.
That's very cool.
Yeah.
So of course, Paul Hackman, a legendary Helix guitarist, died in an accident in 1992, very tragic. And so the next thing to come out was supposed to be a Brian Vollmer solo album, but
Correct.
Pressures indicated that, probably more market value if you use the Helix brand. It's a business doing pleasure. This actually sports Hugh Syme artwork, which is pretty cool.
I like it.
This came out in 1993 on Aquarius Records. I've got a Columbia House version of it. First song, That Day Is Gonna Come. Really cool video with a lot of Brian Vollmer's old Super 8 footage of them on the road from the 70s all the way up through the late 80s. I also remember hearing Tug of War on the radio very briefly.
That was a duet with Lee Aaron. No, that was Look Me Straight in the Heart was the duet with Lee Aaron. Tug of War was the tune. I will be uploading to YouTube. There's an acoustic version that Brian Vollmer did of Tug of War on Much Music live with the new guitar player, Greg Fraser, ex-Brighton Rock. And also Durner came back for this tour.
Yeah.
But neither of them play on the album. The guitar in this album, to my understanding, was Mark Ribler.
So what's interesting about this is Hugh Syme designed the artwork, and it goes right, when Hugh Syme designs the artwork, it goes right down to the font that's used throughout. So it's really classy looking. Kim Mitchell does the solo on Sleeping in the Doghouse again. And there's a lengthy dedication to Paul Hackman on here from Brian. So it's cool. It's a little bit different. It's a little more acoustic based, and the knowledge that it was originally supposed to be a solo album made a lot of sense to me once I heard that.
Brian Durner plays drums on this sucker as well, and I just love his work.
So
unfortunately, this is sort of the start of a period of not decline, but a lower profile where I didn't really know what Helix was doing for a long time.
Yeah, and
I saw them live actually though during that period in '96, and I couldn't tell you who was in the band on guitar because they had kind of like a flux lineup at that time. But it would have been, I think, Gary Borden and Rick Mead, I think, on guitar.
Okay.
Fritz Hines on drums, Daryl Gray on bass, and this was '96 in a club called Stages in Kitchener. They came in and kicked ass. They played nothing but classics. Nothing off of Business Doing Pleasure, but a great show. And then they kind of dropped off my radar for a good solid 2 years.
The next thing I knew of, I read about it in Metal Edge magazine, actually. Came out in '98, was this Half Alive. Now, there was this label called D-Rock Records who popped up at the time. They did a lot of tribute albums. They did albums like Rat Collage, Y&T Endangered Species, and apparently they ripped off artists, from what I
Yeah.
understand. Um, but this is, as you may have guessed, it's got 5 new studio tracks and then live tracks ranging from 92 to 97. Brian had his short hair at this point.
Yeah. But that's him. There he is.
And it's a good compilation.
Yeah.
I like it. You know, I listened to this a lot back in the day. I like the CD itself. It's kind of cool. Got, well, part of the logo.
That
And
tune, Wrecking Ball, it really kicks.
oh, the songs are good on here.
Yeah.
You know, Big Bang Boom was written for Back for Another Taste. I like their cover of The Pusher. I think it's really
it's not
cool,
bad.
different. Yeah, it's good. And actually,
a lot of lineup changes.
I'll be honest with you. I lost touch with Helix for about 11 years after this. There was no profile at the time. I didn't have a computer. I wasn't online, and also my kids were being born, so it was, other priorities were happening. And it wasn't until 2009 that I had the chance to interview Brian when they played in Moncton at the IROC, and that was great. And then I realized how much Helix stuff I'd missed. So I'm jumping ahead. Now I'm going to jump back. So because of Planet Helix and because of some stuff that I bought at the shows, I was able to get caught up. And the next thing, I think, it's got a date of 1999. Oh, okay, yep.
Are we on the same page?
Yep. This is one of the rare U.S. compilations, and I don't think there's enough of them. This came out on Razor and Tie, which was a reissue label, and they licensed the stuff from EMI. Good compilation. The most useful thing on here by far is the inclusion of It's Too Late, which came out on the Iron Eagle soundtrack in 1985, which was probably, they could get it because sometimes they can't always get these soundtrack songs. But the Iron Eagle soundtrack was on Capitol Records. It also had One Vision by Queen. It had These Are the Good Times by Eric Martin. Road of the Gypsy by, I think they were called Adrenaline. Of course, the title song, Iron Eagle, Never Say Die, King Cobra, who were
King
another
Cobra.
Capitol act. But yeah, they put that version of It's Too Late on here. This is a good compilation. I mean, I would hand this to someone. Well, I wouldn't hand it to anybody because it's rare. But if it was readily available, this would be the one I'd say, yeah, go get deep cuts if you're going to listen to a CD. Good liner notes in it. And I like the fact they put Women, Whiskey, and Sin on here.
Right. They
That
didn't
was
ignore
cool.
the first 2 indie albums.
Yeah. Usually they
I
do.
misspoke on It's Too Late. That was an original. Paul Hackman has a credit on it.
Also, I haven't listened to this compilation in a while. Does this have the video mix of The Kids Are All Shaken? Yeah, which is
that was
different.
a big deal to me.
Yeah, because I remember when I first got the Long Way to Heaven album, which was probably in '89. I wasn't used to Brian singing the chorus as low as he was when it first came on. I'm like, this is a little different. So yeah, the video mix is on here.
Plus,
I like
the video mix, I believe, has sort of like a high piano part. Ding, 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 ding.
Yeah, it's got a little keyboard in it.
Yeah.
The next thing I have, I think, says 1999 on it. I bought this at one of the shows. Yeah, B-sides.
This is a great album.
And boy, do they have a lot of great songs that didn't make the cut. And this has that SEX rated on here, the version that most people can get. Danger Zone, I've seen them do that in concert. Another one, Jaws of the Tiger, totally different version than what appeared on than what appeared on the Over 60 Minutes with.
You got me chained. So good. The horn section on You Got Me Chained.
Yeah.
Oh, so good.
Yeah, it's good. Like they had
new version of Love's a Crazy Game.
Yeah. It's good. It's really good stuff on here.
And there's 2 tracks on here that predate Breaking Loose, which is Thinking It Over, which is I think that's
Del Shannon.
Del Shannon cover. Oh, it's great.
Because they opened for Del Shannon.
That's right. They were his backing. Actually, they were his backing band.
Backing band, yeah.
And like Taking Candy from a Baby, which is an original. And I'm not 100% sure. I'd like to ask Brian, but I think Thinking It Over might even have their late keyboardist Don Simmons. It might be old enough that it has Don Simmons.
Okay, yeah. Yeah, when you find stuff that goes back that far, it's pretty cool. So the next thing I have, I don't know what you have next. It has a copyright date of 2001 on it. Yeah.
Killer. So funny story about this one.
Mine's a little different.
It is. You have a clear spine.
I got this off Amazon, I think.
Oh, I bought this from Volmer's site.
This is on Paris Records, and this is useful. This was recorded at like noon as
For a
they
radio
were,
thing.
yeah, on a radio thing. I think it was just before. Curious what your CD looks like because the cover looks different. That's my CD.
So here's a funny story about this. Back in 2000, we'll talk about it when we get to 2006.
Yeah.
But I befriended Brent Durner, and I was over at his house doing an interview, and he said to me, Mike, I'd really like to write a song called "Hot on the Heels of Love." And I said to him, Brent, you already wrote a song called "Hot on the Heels of Love." It's on Live in Buffalo. He's like, really? And I looked over at a CD tower. He had a CD tower with every Helix album that he was on. I was like, Brent, it's right there. You have it. And that was a non-album live track.
Yeah, that's one of the drawing cards. It's an album. It's a song that it must have been considered for Walking the Razor's Edge, but didn't make the final cut.
This is so good.
So it just totally lost. It just totally slipped his mind, or
yeah, like he comes up with what he thinks are interesting titles, clever titles, and he'll write a song kind of based on a title. And I guess the title "Hot on the Heels of Love" came to him, not realizing, I wrote a song like that. It was never recorded. Maybe that's why you don't remember.
Yeah.
I mean,
of course, April Wine had already come out with a song called "Hot on the Wheels of Love," but anyway, so now a lot of compilations.
Yeah, I got two.
I don't know which one you're. Yeah, these are basically counterparts.
Right. There's a U.S. and Canadian counterpart, essentially.
So, rocking you for over 30 years and never trusted anyone over 30. I want to talk about rocking you for 30 years first. It's actually through EMI, and because in Canada they, I guess EMI just put it out. They sold some records for them for EMI. So, got the radio version of "Go to the Last Drop."
Yep.
It's got their cover of "Delilah."
And a weird thing called "I Want to Be Stoned."
Yep. It's weird. It's interesting that the song that they chose from "Wild in the Streets" was "Kiss It Goodbye," but it's "I'm Alive, Frankenstein." I mean, that became a concert staple.
I forgot about that. Yeah, this is from 1999.
Yeah,
"I'm Alive, Frankenstein" was on this. 9 tracks, Brian Durner on drums again, and a few of these tracks end up on their next studio album.
Yeah, I mean, really, there's very little difference between a Vollmer solo album and a Helix album, other than the name, really. I mean, because there were so many different band member changes.
Bill Gadd is a gentleman that he's worked with a number of times, writing wise. Yeah,
but this version came out in the States. My copy's on Dirty Dog Records. Yours probably is too.
Yeah,
I think I got this off Planet Helix as like a 4 CD package, and a lot of the same songs, but not all the same songs. And I think this is as good as a place. So you'll notice none of the actual Capitol recordings appear on here because they couldn't license them. But it's still a good compilation. Of all of the compilations Helix have put out, I don't understand why they've never put The Storm on any of them, because it was a single. I don't think I've ever seen The Storm on any compilation. It's usually Run a Wild in the 21st Century or Go to the Last Drop.
All right, well, let's keep our eyes peeled because we got lots of compilations still to come. But let's keep our eyes peeled for The Storm.
The next CD I have, there's
the Canadian counterpart.
A
lot of the same tracks, but I don't see The Storm.
No, which is odd. Love the song too. The next thing I have came out in 2004, the next studio album, Rockin' in My Outer Space. And it's funny because earlier this week, I was getting ready for this, listening to a lot of Helix, and my thoughts on this album were that I didn't remember it being that good. And then I listened to it, it is good.
It's not bad.
It's a little bit. I think that's part of it. Part of it is the packaging looks a little homespun a little bit.
Yeah.
And that might have colored my impression, but that's not fair. And of course, my copy is signed. Now he signed this one with silver. CD looks kind of cool, but there's good songs on here, really good songs on here.
I threw a bonus disc in with mine because on iTunes you could buy "Rock You" performed at the 2003 Sweden Rock Festival. I just decided to throw it in there as a bonus disc because it has a lot of the same players.
And also that album has, is this the one that has, no, I'm getting ahead of myself. Sorry.
This one does not have a remake on it. Jim Lawson on guitar, Rainer Weichman on guitar,
Yeah.
Oh, you know what? We got to give a shout out to good old Archie Gamble on drums. He's
Yeah.
been holding down the drum stool since Fritz left in the mid 90s.
Yeah.
And he was basically Brian's partner for a long time. This was essentially sort of his last hurrah. And at this time also, Helix were celebrating their 30th anniversary. So
Yes.
we got stuff like this.
Yeah, I don't have that. I've always meant to get it.
And we got, oh, Tim, you're going to want this one here. This
30
is
years
awesome.
ahead.
This is a documentary. They talked to a lot of the ex-members. Unfortunately, Brian, I believe, was estranged from Daryl Gray for a long time around this time. So Daryl Gray, his participation in these kind of things, unfortunately, ends here. But it has rare interviews with guys like Denny Balicki, who is the guy who replaced Brent Durner on tour. And you know, the original lineup. This here has a performance by the original Helix lineup featuring Don Simmons, Rick Minstrel Tremblay, Keith Burt Zerbrig, and the original founding drummer, Bruce Arnold, who formed the band with Brian Vollmer. And pretty much every Helix member, with the exception of Daryl Gray, Denny Balicki, and Paul Hackman, and Mike Uzlak, play on this. It's incredible.
Yeah, I've always meant to get those, and probably about the time I decide to, they'll be unavailable.
I'm afraid, yeah. I can't recommend these enough. There's one more. Yeah, this is 2000. This is an official EMI.
Yeah.
The official music videos.
Yeah.
I mean, their catalog is a lot richer than I really realized when I started digging up my stuff here. I really realized how much these guys have put out of absolute excellent quality. I would recommend all of these.
Yeah.
All of them.
And they're very prolific band. And there have been a lot of compilations, but there's usually a new tune or two sprinkled in.
Yeah, that's 100% true. I have only one compilation here that doesn't have that.
The next thing I have, I think you've got something I don't, because I don't have the Get Up EP.
This was something that they were promoting around the time that they were opening for Alice Cooper in 96.
I saw them on
2006.
Yeah, I saw them on that tour in St. John. They were great. Yeah.
All of these tunes are on the next album.
Yeah. As a matter of fact, that inner sleeve photo is the front cover.
That's correct.
And I think I knew that, which is why I didn't break my neck trying to find it. But it's still cool. Get Up, what a great song. Like that became like a modern anthem for them, right?
Yeah. And one key track on here is the re-recorded Heavy Metal Love.
Yep.
Which was at the time being cross-promoted with the new Trailer Park Boys movie. And Helix actually received a tremendous sort of renaissance thanks to a simple joke on the Trailer Park Boys.
Yep.
Give me an F and R.
Yeah. That was the famous episode where they kidnapped Alex Lifeson and
Gord Downey was a cop, I think. There was
a lot of it was cool when you saw like people in positions of like, you know, relative celebrity shouting out these bands that kind of people had forgotten about. So yeah, the next thing I have is the studio album in 2007, The Power of Rock and Roll. I would imagine our copies are the same. I don't understand. Maybe you can explain this to me. Why did they use like the Chikara symbol?
That I don't know.
It's like, is this a reissue of Crazy Nights or what?
That I don't know. I was fortunate enough to attend the CD release party that night.
Cool.
Yeah, I met a lot of the guys that night. I met Fritz. Met Rayner. It was a great night. Brent and Brian were already buddies by this point with me, so it was just kind of like walking around and seeing familiar faces. I got to go to Brian's house that day. There's a photograph of me on my website standing in front of Brian Vollmer's house. You know, do you remember he received a lot of coverage for that, what they call a gingerbread house that he lived in?
Oh yeah. I remember seeing an episode of Cribs,
right?
That was on, yeah.
So I took my picture in front of the gingerbread house. They don't live there anymore, but it was a really special
Planet Helix.
Day. And you know, I'll also tell another story because it was around this time that I saw them live at a place called Molly Bloom's in Kitchener. My wife bought me tickets to see Helix. She knew I liked Helix, and I walked in, and my glasses are all fogged up. It's like January. My glasses are all fogged up, and I'm rubbing my glasses, and then put my glasses back on, and there's Vollmer. He walks up to me and he shakes my hand and he goes, "Thanks for coming out. I don't have time to talk to everybody for a long time because I got a lot of people to talk to, but I just want to say thanks for coming out." And he did that for everybody who walked in the door.
He's very appreciative. That's for sure. You know?
Yeah. Did that for
So
everybody that walked in the door.
next thing I have is their Christmas album
Yep.
that came out in 2008. Now it's since been
Featuring,
reissued with a new cover,
yeah.
Heavy Mental Christmas. It's fun. Personally, I love the fact they did Wonderful Christmas Time by Paul McCartney
Yes.
because I love that song. But
Me too.
yeah, this is a fun album. Still, man, you just look at the back cover, ever-changing lineup, right?
Yeah.
But things were about to change.
I just want to point out this gentleman right here, Rick Van Dyke, is a local guy. He was in a band that you might remember from the late 80s called Zero Option. And he is currently in a very famous Metallica tribute band called Sandman. They're the one that is officially endorsed by Metallica.
Really? I didn't know
That
any
is
of that.
Rick Van Dyke right there. And I
That's
believe
cool.
Brent Ned Nemi may also be in Sandman. I'm actually pretty sure of that.
That's
We got
cool.
Jim
I didn't
Lawson,
know that.
Paul Fonseca, and of course, the Big
Yeah.
D.
But things were about to change as far as the lineup. It was about
Oh,
to
yeah.
solidify. It was about to solidify, and this is when they came back on my radar because I found out they were coming to Fredericton, and I was working actually back in radio at this point. So I made contact with Brian. I'd emailed Brian before because I'd ordered CDs from him, and we did a really good, I mean, he's a great interview, right? He's a great interview. He'll talk your ear off. And if you go on my channel and just type in Brian Vollmer interview or Helix interview, I've got audio of that up with
Nice.
with just whatever imagery from the concert that I mixed in. But yeah, basically I was catching up on things, and I realized I was way behind on my Helix collection. And so at that show, they were promoting what was then their current album, Just a Bag of Them Vagabond Bones. This was the. They've all been pretty good. This was a killer album. I was way into this. I love the cover. My copy
This is a reunion
signed.
album.
Yeah, it's a reunion album of in a lot of ways.
And I think the first, well, maybe not the first, but definitely one of the first with songwriting and guitar by Sean Kelly.
That's right. Yeah.
He actually joined as bassist when these guys reformed. He joined on bass. They played some gigs on bass, and then Daryl Gray did come back.
Yeah. And Daryl's a vital part of the band with his backing vocals, just his presence on stage.
He does lead vocals on one track and one of the later albums.
Yeah. Yeah, and he's a fine singer on his own.
Yeah.
So yeah, that was I was all in at this point. And I started catching up on what I was missing. The next thing that came out, I got to be honest with you, I need to revisit it because it didn't really do much for me when I heard it. Smash Hits Unplugged. I love it. Now I will say this. One of the songs I really liked on here was a song that I had never heard in my life until I started again, working in radio again, and the song kept coming up on. There was a classic Saturday night show that I would do, and this song called "Touch of Magic" by a guy named James Leroy.
Yeah,
and
really great.
Yeah, he's since passed, and Helix do a really good job of that on here because I was listening to this and I go, wait, this is not a Helix song. How do I know this song? But I don't know. I love a lot of Unplugged albums. To me, there's something about Helix's music, for the most part, that demands to be electrified. But hey, I bought it. I'm a fan. I bought it, and who knows? I may one of these days hear it and go, okay, what was I not hearing before? This is awesome. So anyway,
Caleb Duckman Duck now on second guitar here.
Yeah,
and I also just want to point out, co-produced by Sean Kelly, but Daryl Gray. Bass, 6 and 12 string guitars, mandolin, keyboard, and string arrangements, percussion, washboard, bodhran, harmonica, and vocals, and countless studio hours. That's how vital this guy is to the band.
Oh, yeah.
Ray, right there.
Yeah, without that anchor, I think, because I know from, you know what? This would be a good a time as any to bring up Brian's book, Give Me an R. He talks very candidly about all those lineup changes and having to get somebody for one gig, and you're never going to solidify if it keeps changing like that. Like he did the best he could with what was available. But another thing I thought was
he was basically Tony Iommi trying to keep his band together during very difficult times, and he kept the gigs going, and he kept product after Half Alive basically got him back on the shelves. He kept product coming year after year after year that you could buy.
Yeah, he's dedicated. He's all in with Helix. It's his life,
Yeah.
right? Another cool thing about this, I first got this book. It came out in 2005. I got it in 2006. It was right around the time that my daughter was starting kindergarten. So it was, it's nervous. You go to the school on the first day. It's a little school here in our village. And what do I hear? And I knew about it from reading the book, but Brian's version of "O Canada."
What? You heard that?
Yes.
I don't know where you get it anymore.
I don't know if it was just distributed to the schools, but now if I recall this correctly, the CD was skipping, which is, but it came on, the music came on, hey, yeah. And I'm like, I know what this is. So yeah, it was kind of interesting timing. So, okay. So now we jump back into what's the next thing?
I have this one next.
Yes. The skin of the game.
I think the artwork is being done by Derner at this point.
It's good. It's really good. This is just a 5-song EP. Well, they do the William Tell Overture, which I saw them start to do in 2009 live.
Skin in the Game is a great track.
Yeah.
So is Angelina.
I was going to say, all the songs on here, Sean Kelly co-wrote.
Yeah.
Champagne Communist, A Bitch is a Bullet. Yeah.
He's got a knack for a hook, man. Look, a big picture of the doctor right there, Dr. Derner.
Yeah.
He was a big part of the band again, you know?
Now, the night that I saw them in 2009, I met the entire band. Brian was good enough to sign my records, but I guess he was sick. Like, he was really, really sick. So he ducked backstage, met the rest of the guys, hung out with them. It was just super cool. Very cool.
Right on.
The next thing I have is a compilation. Yeah.
Now, there's something that comes before this compilation that you alluded to earlier, which is another picture sleeve.
Oh, that came. Okay, yes.
Now, this is a colored picture sleeve, colored single, I should say.
I think mine is too.
I think they all came in green.
Yeah, mine's same one. All I Want for Christmas is the.
Oh. Did we lose you, Tim? Or did you lose me? I'm not sure what's happening here.
Okay.
Did you lose me?
Yeah. Are we back? Yeah, I bought this in 2016 when I saw them, and it was open on the side.
Don't download it.
Yeah. Yeah, really.
Jingle Bells from the Christmas album on the B side.
Okay, so yeah, and that also made an appearance on here, which I got to say, like, obviously a lot of the classics are re-recorded, so they didn't have to license them from Capitol. They're credible versions. I
consider that, personally, after that many compilations, I consider that added value.
Yeah, no, it is, and they're fine versions, and it's a good overall mix. I love the fact it starts off with Danger Zone,
right from the B-sides album.
But yeah, there's, songs on here, the stuff from Vagabond Bones, Animal Inside, Make 'em Dance. Make 'em Dance got some radio airplay around here. It's got Axe to Grind is awesome.
Axe to Grind was brand new at this time.
Yeah. And then All I Want for Christmas, Fill Your Head with Rocks on here. Yeah, it's good. It's a good, solid compilation. I'm not the biggest fan of these little thin.
No, it disappears in my collection a bit.
Give me a jewel case, please.
Right.
Okay, now the next studio album proper.
Oh boy, this is a winner. This is a winner.
Oh, yeah. A nice signed vinyl copy, Bastard of the Blues. Cool artwork.
This is a killer album.
Oh, I love it. Yeah. This is a great album. Got some, it's got a cool.
Wow, you're making me wish I'd bought it on vinyl. That's nice. I didn't realize that the vinyl was so nice.
And it's colored blue vinyl. And
wish I'd bought it, man.
It hasn't been that long since I got that. Of course, I had the CDs first, same as you.
Chris Gilkey now on guitar, the Doctor having departed.
Yeah.
Doctor now runs his own graphic art company called Red D, and they do all of Helix's music videos. I believe they did the video for Even Jesus wasn't loved in his hometown. Was that the one? I can't remember. That's a great
Probably.
song.
It's an awesome song. This
My
picture of
my winner on this album is a little Sean Kelly written track called Metal at Midnight.
I love it. That's so
Yeah.
old school. Now you've got an actual jewel case. Mine's a digipack.
Oh, interesting. I've never
Yeah.
seen that.
I ordered this. I got this from Planet Helix. Brian signed it. They must have made two different. This photo of Brian on the back was taken by a guy named Alan. I'm going to get his name wrong. Zukowski. I'm a Facebook friend with Alan. I think he took this at a gig that they did in Moncton, New Brunswick in early 2014 with Honeymoon Suite, which I really wanted to go to. But that day we had freezing rain and we couldn't, like, people were getting stuck on our little side street. So I couldn't even imagine driving to Moncton in that. But
No kidding.
apparently I missed a good show.
Darn.
I don't know about you, but I've got 4 things left.
I have 1, 2. Oh shoot! You know what? I forgot to show off a couple of things earlier. Check out this Wild in the Streets.
Oh, that's awesome.
Yeah, it's just a promo, but it's a beauty.
Very cool.
Let's see what year this was. This is 2018. I don't know where we are as far as dates go.
I don't have that on vinyl yet. That's the Universal Icon.
Yeah.
I only have that on CD. A good compilation. Really good.
This is the only one without new material on it.
Yeah, but at that time, well, yeah, to a lot of people it would be a new song though. The last couple of songs.
Oh, yeah, Gene Simmons says "Rock is Dead,"
Rock is
which
Dead,
is a great music video.
Yeah.
And then when did this come out here? The Devil is Having a Party Tonight.
That was 2017. I think I have that too.
The Tequila song and The Devil is Having a Party Tonight. Interestingly enough, The Devil is Having a Party Tonight is co-written only by the band. Caleb Duck, Daryl Gray, Greg Heinz, Chris Julke, and Brian Vollmer. The second track is written by Vollmer with Gord Pryor from Blue Bones and Steve Georgikalopoulos, who played a lot of guitar on stuff like Power of Rock and Roll.
Yeah.
Never an official member of the band. So I've got those. And
I've got
I don't know if you have this compilation coming up.
Yeah, I bought this when I saw them in 2016.
That's Brent Durner doing the cover art. And I got to admit a soft spot here because as a kid in high school, I always drew guitars as rocket ships. Always.
That's cool.
And you know what? His ES 335 from Billy Oxygen was a guitar rocket ship, right?
There you go. And the first track on here is Billy Oxygen.
Yeah. This one has Gene Simmons as Rock is Dead, which I believe was the new track that they were kind of promoting at the time. Oh, look at this. I didn't even remember this. I'll show this off. Apparently I bought these as well. A complete set of Helix picks.
Oh, cool. Oh, with the rocket sign. Yeah.
Each one has a different. I forgot that I bought these. That's a nice piece of merch, in my opinion. I know a lot of people who love collecting picks. I think you are one of them.
Yeah. They were probably selling those that night. I saw them. Actually, I did see them with Honeymoon Suite that night in 2016. That was a nice summertime show. I think it was right around Canada Day. And man, what a great double bill that was. It was so good. That was a show where they sound checked with Billy Oxygen, but I remember they opened with Long Way to Heaven, which I'd never seen them do live before. And it was just a great show. So far, the last studio album is actually an album of older songs, but man, did I ever get into this. Old School came out in 2018, I think. There's some great stuff on here. You know,
cover art by Durner once more.
How did Cheers get left off one of their Capitol albums and not released as a single? What a great ballad!
Perhaps the recording quality of it, like it sounds just like maybe a bit too rough for an official 80s release.
But why was what my thought was, why didn't someone say you got to do, get in the studio and do a proper version of that? What a great song. Co-written with Bob Halligan, I believe.
Look at Fritz there in the front row at school there.
Yeah.
That's great.
Yeah, this was good. And I bought this at the same time that the first 2 CDs were reissued.
Me too. I bought them all in one order.
I think that, and I think we both have the exact same piece of paper from Mr. Vollmer himself.
There we go. Yep.
just basically thanking you for buying it, and yeah. There's a few old school, and I'm missing a few vinyl from them. I got to catch up on my vinyl. But yeah,
I'm
old
only
school,
really
really good.
starting to appreciate buying the vinyl versions in addition to the CDs now that I've been hanging out with guys like you.
I'm not easy on people's bank accounts. It's true.
I got a
And I've
couple
only
more
got
to
one
show
more
off
thing.
here as well. I don't know if you've heard this album.
I've heard some of it. Yeah.
It's very good. All covers. And the first cover is Buff's Bar Blues, which is the track that the original lineup played on the 30th anniversary concert. Now, this is a new recording, but that's an historic track for Helix, Buff's Bar
Yeah.
Blues. And
Seems
then,
to
of
me,
course,
there was one song on there that I had a version of by somebody else, and I can't remember. It's
Rock and Roll Outlaw by Keel.
no, that wasn't it.
Don't Try to Lay No Boogie Woogie on the King of Rock and Roll.
No.
Well, there's a lot of good tunes on here.
Yeah.
Oh, When the Bitters Get the Better of You is a recording.
Reissue of the song on Vagabond Bones. Yeah.
Yeah. And then I got to give a shout out to my buddy Brent, who in 2006 came out with this absolutely killer debut album.
Who's all in on that?
Interesting. This guy here on the, I guess that would be your whatever. Anyway, that's a guy by the name of Shane Shedler. And Shane Shedler was a customer of mine at the record store.
Okay.
Huge guy. And he never forgave me for recommending a copy of Nuno Schizophonic to him. He came back and he returned it a few days later. It's like, Mikey, we got to talk about Nuno. Why did you recommend this to me? But anyway,
it's kind of
nice
weird.
Guy.
It's kind of weird.
Yeah. It's Brent and Brian. Actually, Brian's not on the cover, but I believe he does play drums on a few tracks. He had a guy named Dan Lauren also on drums. Dan was another customer of mine at the record store. And the late, great Chick Shumilas. He had 3 guitar players in this band, Shane himself and Chicky. Chicky died a few years ago, but he was a great guitar player. There's some amazing tunes on here, but I got to give a big shout out to a song called Dancing Frogs, the Zamboni song. A guy by the name of Hills Walter. He plays in a local blues band called Fog, the Fog Blues Band. Hills Walter sings lead vocals on Dancing Frogs, and he became an official member shortly thereafter. Best track on here is track 3, song called Taking the Color Out of the Blues. And you got to see the way he spells blues. This is a great album. He followed it up with My Wicked Twin. Lineup changes here.
That.
He had Mike Uzlak from Helix, now going by the name of Uzi.
Okay, so he resurfaced because he was missing in action for many years.
And in fact, around the time of Vagabond Bones, Helix recorded one song with Uzi on bass. Daryl was not back in the band at this point. They recorded a song called It's a Long Way to the Top If You Want to Rock and Roll.
Yes, okay, I know this story. Yeah,
right, and
they
never got released
it for some reason, which makes no sense because
Brian,
people do covers all the time.
Google it. There's a great interview with Brian on Brave Words where he talks about getting a very angry phone call from Bud Prager, who must have been involved with AC/DC's management or publishing at the time. And Bud Prager, who is known for writing the song Crush 'Em by Megadeth.
Yeah. I think of him as Foreigner's manager.
Okay, there you go. I didn't know that. But Bud phoned up Volmer and he said, I hope you realize you've gotten me in a lot of trouble. And Brian's like, what are you talking about? I just want to license this song so you guys can get paid. And I guess Bud Prager told Volmer on the phone, nobody covers AC/DC. Nobody.
I've got an AC/DC covers album.
Sorry?
I've got an AC/DC covers album on.
So do I. And I believe Volmer pointed out that he knew a group. I think it might have been the Mudmen that covered an AC/DC
and then
song.
Hayseed Dixie.
Hayseed Dixie. For whatever reason, he could not get the licensing. He couldn't pay AC/DC to release the track, and it's never been released. I believe it was supposed to be on whatever the first compilation after Vagabond Bones or something like that.
Crazy.
I think I've exhausted all of my collection here, though.
I've got one more thing that came out in 2020. Eat, Sleep, Rock.
Right. Forgot that one. Eat, Sleep, Rock. Yeah.
Which the only thing different on the only new stuff on here. I'm glad to have a CD version of the Tequila Song and The Devil's Having a Party Tonight.
Yeah.
It's got the story of Helix,
Yeah.
which is fun, and it's got the song "Eat Sleep Rock." Other than that, Shock City Psycho Rock, Wrecking Ball, I'm Alive, Frankenstein, Even Jesus Wasn't Loved in His Hometown, Cyberspace Girl, When the Bitters Got the Better of You, Gene Simmons Says That Rock is Dead. It's good compilation, you know.
Yep.
I'd like to have, you know, I think it's time for a new studio album. That's what I think.
Well, they did release just 2 weeks ago a
Yeah,
new song written by Sean Kelly called "Not My Circus, Not My Clowns,"
yeah.
and I hope that means that we'll see some kind of physical release. I hope.
And here's the thing: if that comes out on another compilation, I'll still buy it because
Oh, me too.
that's just how I am. But
You know what?
yeah,
A lot of other bands, I won't cut them slack. You know, like if Kiss came out with another compilation with one new song, I'd say, listen, guys, cut the bullshit. When
yeah,
it's Helix, I understand it. It's a you have to keep stuff coming out
yeah,
in order to justify the gigs.
yeah.
And
Have something to
Volmer has
sell at the
never
shows.
he's never put out a compilation album where I felt ripped off after buying it ever.
He throws
Everything
in
has
different
value.
songs, and the fact of the matter is that you're bound to get someone at a show buying one of these compilations that doesn't have all of these independent albums, and those songs are new to them.
Correct. Not all the
So
stuff is in print all the time when it's being released. And like you
now
said,
I happened to notice this last night, and well, as of filming this, that there's a festival that's happening in my province
right.
in September, and they're trying to get on the bill. So I'm hoping they do, and I'm also hoping they take another swing because even though New Brunswick's a small province, it's a long way from where I am. I'm hoping they take a swing and hit Fredericton and Moncton because a Helix show is always a good time.
Amen to that.
And
I've seen
Brian can
him.
still sing. Like Brian has kept his vocal chops. I think it's his training.
He
He's
is classically trained
he's
in a technique called
he's
bel
never
canto.
lost what he had.
Actually, if you buy one of those, I think it's the 30th anniversary concert, he does a fantastic version of Ave Maria in the opening credits, you know?
Yeah.
Yeah, you know what? I can't throw enough praise at these guys. I've met virtually everybody,
Yeah,
you know, that's still with us in the
it's just a
band.
good combination of like a likable bunch of guys and good music.
I way back in the dawn of YouTube, I recorded a video called "Why I Prefer Helix to Rush." Ooh, hot take, a hot take. But it caught their attention. And I remember when I met Brian at his house that day, Linda Volmer walked up to me and she's British. She's like, "Oh, you're the one who did that video. Thank you so much. Thank you so much." And I was just like, wow,
That's cool.
wow.
Yeah. It just reminded me of something though, and I probably won't find it now that I'm specifically looking for it. Talk amongst yourselves. Let's
If
see.
you're going to let me talk about amongst ourselves, I'll just quickly give a good shout out to a buddy called John Hockley, who is the man who introduced me to Brian Volmer. I don't know where John Hockley is now, but thank you, man. I really appreciate it.
I just thought that there's lots of cool photos inside of Brian's book, but I thought there was a version or there was a picture of some of the guys with, I don't know if it was Alex Lifeson or because they did open for Rush in '84.
There's definitely pictures in them with Eddie Van Halen,
Yeah.
Richard Pryor, Robin Williams. Yeah.
Of course, I'm
That's
not.
a fantastic book. My copy is over there somewhere, but
Okay, so I've got one little minor, and this is just me. There's an awful lot of spelling errors in it.
I've noticed that.
It could have used some editing,
I
and
think
I
Alanis
say that,
Morissette is
and
spelled two different ways.
listen, I know how you can miss things. Boy, do I know how you can miss things, and you need a second set of eyes because if you look at something long enough, it doesn't even look wrong to you. But yeah, but it's a great book. It's a great
It
read.
is so good.
Yeah.
I mean, it came out. You couldn't find really a lot of stuff about Helix online.
No,
The Wikipedia was woefully inadequate
yeah,
until a brave young soul from Kitchener, Ontario, decided to edit the thing in 2009.
yeah,
and I got it up to date, and then I kind of left it, let it go for the next generation to update. But I whipped that thing into shape, and I wrote the Paul Hackman article as well. I still have the press clipping from when Paul Hackman was killed. A buddy of mine named Mike McNeil was on tour with Helix on that tour. He had some Meat magazine coverage back in the day, but yeah, I mean, he was there. He remembers the incident. or at least, you know, the aftermath of the incident. He wasn't there for the actual accident, but
Yeah.
I remember being at home, sorry, no, at the cottage, and I was watching the nightly news, and coming up next, Helix, and I was, oh no, and I just had a vibe.
Yeah.
Why are Helix on the news? And I had a vibe, and then of course it was worse than I
Well,
feared.
you know what? It's kind of like Great White. It's like, why would Great White be on CNN? This can't be
Right.
good. Yeah.
Yeah, it wasn't a good thing. And oh man, you know, Paul Hackman was such a talent. He wrote a lot of their best material,
Oh
a
yeah.
lot of their most melodic material. um I obviously, I'm a huge Helix fan, and I have been since I was a young kid, and I wanted to be in that band, you know. I wanted to be on stage with them. And I'd see video footage of them playing live, and Brian Vollmer doing these insane tumbles off of
Yeah.
onto tables, and then, oh my god. And when I first saw them live in '87 on the Wild in the Streets tour with Haywire opening, East Coast Boys, Vollmer did this thing where he climbed up to the mezzanine, and then he ran around the balcony. And me and my friend Bob, we were in the second row of the balcony, and I was too shy, too scared to like put out my hand
Yeah.
to slap his hand as he ran by. So I just went like, right on, man, as he ran by. But that was like, for me as a grade 10 student, would have been like 14 years old. That was my first, holy crap, man. I love
Rockstar
rock and roll. I
encounter. Yeah.
love rock and roll. It
Yeah.
was,
No, I know. That's cool.
yeah.
So, folks, if you're watching this long, you're probably a big fan. But if you're just like watching and you've never really checked the band out, go on YouTube, just type in Helix and enjoy. It's really good. Again, the word I keep using is dependable. Like, and good time rock and roll, quite varied within
Yeah,
parameters,
absolutely.
and just consistently good throughout the decades.
They were known as the hardest working band in Canada for many, many years, and
And
for
they
good
and they
reason.
could still be. They
Yeah,
could still be.
yeah.
So, Mike, as always, thanks for showing off your cool collection of stuff and the stories. Like growing up where you did, you had the advantages of all this stuff, and it's just always a pleasure to be sitting in. And yeah, guys, go check out some Helix. PlanetHelix.com. Go buy yourself some Helix CDs.
Check
And
out some
thanks
Helix on
everybody.
YouTube. Check out Waltzing with Helix.
Yes.
Good stuff. Good
Yeah.
stuff.
If you're not following Mike LeBrain on YouTube, you need to rectify that right now. Unspooled, Adventure and 8 tracks, still available for purchase. Message me. We'll get you set up. Mike, thanks again.
Thank you,
And
buddy.
thanks everybody for watching Tim's Final Confessions.
Give me an R, buddy.